inability to be self-financing, the scheme cannot be deemed a priority scheme. A new scheme is being considered and the value and financing for that scheme will be assessed. The status of the Bridge North project and its budget were confirmed at the Future Bridge North Group meeting on the 24th of October last year. The conceptual design work and business case was paused to reflect the decision that this scheme had moved from being a highway-led project to an economic-led project. The scheme remains within the capital strategy as one of the named aspirational projects and has retained the £4.5 million budget. Although without the scheme being self-financing, the funding by definition no longer exists. This information should give confidence on the current position of the Bridge North proposals and confirm that they remain included in the overall capital strategy of the Council.
Councillor Buckley, the second part of the question.
Thank you, Gwilym. Could the portfolio holder for finance please indicate in writing that the £4.5 million for Bridge North High Street and Public Realms Works agreed at Council in February 22, March 23 and September 23 is still available and the project is still designated as a priority scheme, which was also approved at the above-mentioned Council meetings?
Councillor Butler.
Thank you. As detailed in the response to the first part of the question, the funding earmarked for the original scheme only existed as the scheme was self-financing. The shift in status in the capital strategy reflects the reality that the revised scheme is no longer self-financing. If the revised scheme remains within the capital strategy as an aspirational scheme, it will enable a business case to be identified and an appropriate budget and financing to be considered. Nevertheless, the previous budget of £4.5 million has been retained within the capital strategy at this present time.
And the final part, Councillor Buckley.
Could the portfolio holder for finance identify the cost of the work already undertaken by WSP, the Council's built environment contractor, for the regeneration project?
Councillor Butler.
Over the original scheme and the new schemes that have been looked at, the expenditure to date by WSP is in the region of £192,000.
Thank you. Does Councillor Connolly have a supplementary to that?
She does, yes. She thanks you for reassuring the residents and councillors of Bridge North that although the word Bridge North has been omitted from the written documents, you have today put in writing that the town of Bridge North does still have an aspirational scheme. Her question is, you note in your response that the Future Bridge North Group confirmed the original plan. Why was the Bridge North Future Group not informed that a business plan was not completed and that the scheme was no longer self-financing?
Councillor Butler, probably out of your remit, I imagine.
Yes, I think you've taken the words out. What I will endeavour to do, Julia, is, because this is now cross portfolios, economic development, highways and obviously finance, I will get a written response for you and actually get that put on the member portal and in the minutes.
Very helpful, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to question number... Brilliant, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Moving on to question number 2 from Councillor Colin Taylor, who's already joined us at the table. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Leader. In the light of all the problems with potholes across the whole county, I would like to know how many claims have been made against the council for damaged vehicles, i.e. wrecked tyres, broken springs, suspensions, etc. in the past year. If there is an increase in claims year on year, what percentage increase has there been year on year? How much in compensation has been paid out to claimants? How many claims are paid out on first claim and how many on appeal? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. To answer the question, Councillor Dan Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your question. In the 12 months to the 29th of February 2024, a total of 654 claims for highway-related vehicle damage were received. 631 of these claims relate to damage because of potholes. In the 12 months to 28th of February 2023, a total of 484 claims for highways-related vehicle damage were received, 463 relating to potholes. That's a 30... that's a 35.1% increase year on year. How much in compensation has been paid out to claimants? Payments of £89,312 have been raised in respect of claims during the 12 months to 28th of February 23. Payments of £107,115 have been paid for the 12 months to the 29th of February 24. 140 of these claims are currently open and under investigation. Depending on the outcome of our investigations, this figure is likely to increase. Currently, reserves of 102,110 are held against these open claims. In response to how many claims are paid out on first claim and how many are paid on appeal, each claim is fully investigated and a liability decision made in line with the outcome of the process. We do not automatically issue a denial in the first instance, and if it is considered that the council has no legal defence against a claim, liability will be accepted and the claim will be settled promptly. Where the council has a legal defence against a claim, such as a Section 58 defence under the Highways Act 1980, a denial will be issued explaining the reasons for this. Upon receipt of a challenge, a file will be reviewed, and in almost all cases, it is unlikely that the decision on a claim will be overturned unless new evidence has been presented. It is infrequent that any challenges are received, and as such, this is not something that is recorded within the claims handling system. Where a denial of liability is maintained, the claimant will be reminded they are entitled to seek legal advice in respect of the matter. Litigation is infrequent, and just one of the 1,138 claims received over the last 2 years has entered litigation.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Taylor, have you got a supplementary at all? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. The next question comes from Councillor Julia Buckley.
Thank you, Chair. The Highways term maintenance contract with Kia and the WSP contract are two of the largest contracts for works from Shropshire Council. Could the portfolio holder for Highways please confirm, number one, the annual value of these contracts? Do you want me to pause? Or?
Yes, we just might do it piece by piece. Councillor Morris.
The Kia contract has an annual spend of around 25 million and around 9 million for WSP.
How many subcontractors are involved with delivery?
Councillor Morris.
Kia have 33 subcontractors available on the Shropshire contract.
Councillor Buckley.
The names and postcodes of the subcontractors.
Councillor Morris.
Kia have a supply chain of 33 subcontractors, 11 of which are Shropshire-based companies. However, other national providers such as Tarmac have quarries and offices in Shropshire, Mid Wales and the Midlands and employ large numbers of Shropshire-based people. WSP have very few subcontractors, but 90% of the people employed on the Shropshire contract live in Shropshire.
Councillor Buckley.
What percentage of these contracts are delivered by Shropshire companies? If the council insists on outsourcing service delivery, we could take... It is?
Yeah, sorry. Go on. Carry on, Councillor Buckley.
With the permission of Councillor Carroll. If the council insists on outsourcing service delivery, we could take the opportunity to ensure the procurement supports our local businesses.
Councillor Morris.
This has been answered in the previous question. However, I should remind you that around 10 million is also spent through council control and mixed economy. This involves directly employing interim employees and subcontractors, all of which are Shropshire-based.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Buckley?
I do, yes. I just want to make sure I've understood that out of a total spend of £34 million per year, there are 33 subcontractors. So it's approximately £1 million each, all those different layers of profit and bureaucracy and distance between the residents.
Councillor Buckley, is this a question or is this just a commentary?
Yeah, my question is, why haven't you published the names and the postcodes of the 33 contractors as requested?
I have a feeling that might be a GTBR issue, but anyway, Councillor Morris.
I'm not sure we're allowed to, are we?
I don't know. I'll get a written
Could we ask
response.
the legal officer whether we are allowed to know the names and postcodes of the contractors who take Shropshire Council's money?
Yeah.
It's public money, so I'm very sure it's
Councillor
public
Buckley.
information.
Councillor Buckley.
Through the chair.
We'll get a written response.
Thank you.
Moving on to question number 4, Councillor Andy Boddington, who's joining us online. I've seen him already this morning. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah. So my question is, The preamble is the opposition to the closure of two, or potential closure of two household recycling centres to save 300,000 a year has been strong. A petition to save the Craven Arms HRC gained more than 5,000 signatures on the day it was launched. That's now nearly 8,000 signatures. In contrast, the opposition to the proposal to charge for green waste collection has not been as strong. We are a very large county, and increasing the distance people have to drive to the HRC will discourage recycling, encourage fly tipping, and go against the council's ambition to become net zero. Could the Cabinet ask officers to look again at this proposal and consider other options to achieve the same saving? These might include examining increasing the proposed charge for collecting green waste from £52 a year to £60 a year, a measure that could raise 600,000 a year and cost 15p a week per participant. Examining whether reducing the hours or days that some HRCs are open would lead to savings that would help keep all 5 HRCs open.
Thank you, Councillor Boddington. I wasn't sure if that was the last question or not. To answer your question, Councillor Ian Nellins.
Thank you, Andy. Councillor Ian Nellins, Portfolio Holder for Climate Change, the Environment and Transport. First of all, thank you for adding the word potential closure, potential, in, because it's correct, it's potential. I'll preface all of the answers with a general statement simply to reassure everyone that whilst the 24-25 budget includes a series of individual actions or areas where we are looking to achieve cost reductions, in delivering those savings we are focused on trying to mitigate the impact as far as possible. So yes, we do have to deliver savings, but we are exploring all possibilities as to how we achieve them. So the current HWRC provision levels, the Council has a statutory duty to provide sites at which residents can deposit their household waste free of charge and that are reasonably accessible to residents. The legislation does not specify how many sites an authority should provide, and therefore the responsible authority is able to determine what is reasonably accessible based on local circumstances. So in answer to your first question about examining increased proposed charge for collecting green waste from £52 to £60 a year, there is presently no statutory duty to collect green garden waste, and while some councils collect free of charge, the majority now charge for the service. There is no specific legislation that dictates what a council can charge, but charges are set on each council's individual circumstances, such as cost of providing the service, local budget constraints and demand. The revenue generated can be used to offset other budget pressures and support the delivery of existing services. To identify the required saving within the budget setting process, a proposed charge of £52 per year was used. However, several options in terms of charges were also provided by officers. This represents value for money when benchmarked against other authorities within our SIPFA group and equated to £1 per week. This will now be subject to public consultation, and following the response received, both Cabinet and Council approval will be required, giving ample opportunity for representation to be made. On your second part, examining whether reducing hours would be helpful, this has previously been discussed with our contractor Veolia, but we have now requested that a detailed assessment of the costs and savings of the option to close all 5 sites for up to 2 days per week, although there would still be some provision throughout the week and all sites being open at the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nellins. Councillor Boddington, do you have a supplementary?
No, but I'd just like to thank Councillor Nellins for that thorough and positive response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boddington. Moving on to the next question, which is from Councillor Kate Halliday, which again is being read by Councillor Julia Buckley.
Thank you. On the 30th of January 2024, ITV News reported that floodwater samples tested from rivers around the UK have potential to pose a significant risk to human health. Round Our Way, a not-for-profit organisation supporting people impacted by climate change in the UK, sent floodwater samples to a laboratory to determine the various levels of contamination following the Storm Henk floods. The water samples were found to contain high levels of bacteria and pollution, after recent extreme weather had caused the rivers to flood into surrounding areas. The floodwater samples were taken from a child's playground next to the River Severn by the Weir in Shrewsbury, a housing estate near the River Mole in Surrey and the River Ouse in York. In all three areas, results showed ammonia levels that were above UK quality thresholds. In Surrey, York and Shrewsbury, floodwater samples showed high levels of E. coli or Clostridia, indicating fecal organisms in the floodwater. During times of flooding, when there's an increased sewage discharge into our rivers, does public health analyse whether there is an increase in incidents of vomiting and or diarrhoea? And if not, could this be considered for the previous 3 flood episodes and going forwards as standard?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Councillor Cecilia Motley, Portfolio Holder for Adult Social Care and Public Health. Thank you for your question. Firstly, to reassure members and the public that infection problems arising from floods in this country are rare. Usually any harmful bugs in floodwater become very diluted and present a low risk. The key risks from flooding during the acute phase is from exposure to contaminated water in the home or from contaminated clothing, etc., or injury from submerged hazards, and in the post-flood recovery phase, mental health and possibly asthma-type presentations as homes dry out. The UK Health Security Agency, formerly Public Health England, is responsible for protecting every member of every community from the impact of infectious diseases. As part of their role, their field services team do undertake syndromic surveillance, analysing information on diarrhoea and vomiting and gastrointestinal illness from a number of sources at a national, regional and local authority level, and look in further detail if they pick up signals or case reports of illness, etc., in a geographical area. Some of this intelligence is shared in a restricted capacity with the local public health teams. In addition, local public health teams are notified of waterborne infections and provide information to the affected individual and request that they complete a questionnaire to try to identify any potential source. In the past 3 months, there have been 4 significant storms leading to flooding between 18th October 2023 to 2nd of January 2024, with flood warnings on the Vyrnwy and alerts on the Severn, plus the Tern and Perry, which empty into the Severn. Most of the tributaries flowing into the Severn were on flood alerts. The data available to UK HSA for Shropshire and also Worcestershire for comparison during or straight after the events does not show any significant peaks at that time for vomiting and diarrhoea, with the exception of week 51 and 52 in 2023. This peak was also seen in a number of other areas that were not subject to flooding and also coincided with a peak in seasonal illness reported at that time. Therefore, the findings were inconclusive of links to flooding. I can confirm this data will continue to be monitored going forward, and during floods, this will be reported into any emergency response arrangements, including through the Multi-Agency Strategic Coordinating Group, SCG, arrangements which UK HSA and key partners are on. Whilst rare, there are a few precautions to be aware of when dealing with flooding, which should prevent unnecessary additional health problems and surveillance in place to monitor for any change. In addition, we do signposting to information on the health risks of flooding during any episodes. We would ask members to support pushing out the messaging available at Your Health and Flooding, Shropshire Council, including advice that will reduce, prevent exposure, flooding and health advice for the public.gov.uk, www.gov.uk.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Councillor Buckley, does Kate Halliday have a supplementary?
Yes, she says, thank you very much for that very reassuring answer. And she asked, could that data be fed through to the scrutiny working group, the ongoing working group for river quality? And it would be useful as well if there was an annual baseline that could show us over the last 5 years whether there's been any change at all, you know, given what's been happening with the increased sewage into the river. Thank you.
That we will look into.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And finally, a question from Councillor David Vasma, who is online. Councillor Vasma.
Thank you, Chair. At the council meeting on February 29th, it was reported that the Director of Place had authorised an exceedance over budget of 300,000 spending on the North West Relief Road. When I questioned this during the debate of the road, I was told the Director of Places Authority had approved spending of up to 500,000. When was this agreed and by whom? And are there any restrictions on how this exceedance is used? Apart from extra spending on the North West Relief Road, has the Director of Places authorised any other items of spending over budget of up to 500,000?
Thank you, Councillor Vansman. To answer the question, Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, portfolio holder for Finance and Corporate Resources and Communities. Thank you for the question, Councillor Vasma. Full Council approved the Constitution, including financial procedure rules, which provide the following. A.2.24, a manager or director with the approval of the Section 151 officer may exercise virements up on budgets within or outside of their own area for amounts below 500,000. There shall be full agreement between the manager or managers and or directors with responsibility for those policy area. The Director of Place has authorised several other items of spending over budget of up to 500,000. There's no requirement to report virements up to this value, but they are included in aggregate in the financial monitor each quarter. Summary details of the virements in the revenue and capital are provided.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Vasma?
Yes, thanks very much for the response. Could I have a copy of the detailed virements as far as the Director of Place is concerned, as indicated in the answer? I'd be very grateful for that.
I don't know is the answer to that. We'll come back to you, Councillor Vasma.
All I've actually got, which I can forward to you on email, is the copy of the financial quarter report, which has the total figure, which you can actually see, which is public data.
I think, in all honesty, Councillor Vasma, you've probably got all that information already. It's contained within the quarterly reports, I understand. Is that right, James? Yes. So you've already got that information. Okay. So, moving on, there are no scrutiny matters today.
Chairman,
yes?
can I ask a question at this point?
You can.
There was a call-in of the Cabinet decision on parking.
Yes.
There was a scrutiny committee who looked at that, and there was a unanimous decision to refer it back to Cabinet. I expected to see it today. I inquired of committee services, and they said they had no knowledge or had no report prepared. Can you inform us what is happening with the parking, please?
I can. It was going to come to this committee before the call-in, but as you will, those of you who were at the call-in will know, there was a lot of further information required, and that wasn't able to be provided before this meeting. So it will come to the Councillor Barrow. It's your committee. Do you want to? Okay, yeah, okay. But in all honesty, Councillor Evans, there was too much information that was required for the scrutiny officers to actually come back to us before now.
If you will allow me to come back, Chairman, so will it be coming, the expectation is that it will be at the next Cabinet Committee? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I... am I right, Councillor? I've just promoted you, or not? Yeah. Okay. Moving on to item number 7, and actually, Councillor Evans, that's remiss of me not to actually have included that under scrutiny. Item number 7, Shropshire Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, commonly known as the LC Whip, final draft. Councillor Ian Nellins.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Nellins, portfolio holder for climate change, the environment and transport. The Shropshire Council active travel ambitions are established and prioritised within the draft Shropshire Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, LC Whip. In the summer of 2023, the Council analysed the feedback generated through a comprehensive public and stakeholder engagement exercise and produced the final draft of the LC Whip and the delivery plans for Shrewsbury, Oswestry, Market Drayton, Whitchurch, Ludlow, Bridge North and Church Stretton. The LC Whip aims to deliver on the Shropshire Plan's key strategic objectives by providing a high-quality, active travel network of routes which will enable more people to choose walking, cycling and wheeling for short trips. This in turn will help Council to deliver on its ambitions to develop more opportunities for active travel in Shropshire, generating a range of related benefits, including improved air quality, better health and well-being, which is also within our healthy environment aspirations. Support the increase of low-carbon transport in the county, healthy environment. Encourage changes to the way people travel and the use of sustainable transport options, healthy economy. Increase the health and well-being and reduce social isolation through physical activities, healthy people. There are additional projects such as the school streets and road safety which can complement or add to the LCWIP projects. Shropshire Council has previously missed out on funding due to not having a plan. This plan will strengthen our bids for future funding. The emerging Shropshire LCWIP has already been cited in several successful funding bids, including Active Travel Fund 4, the Capability and Ambition Fund, Levelling Up, UKSPF and the Marches LEP funding. So I propose to the Cabinet that we note the public consultation results and subsequent amendments made to the draft Shropshire LCWIP and recommend to Council to adopt the final draft for the Shropshire Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennon. Do I have a seconder for that one, please?
Councillor Robert Macy, Portfolio Holder for Culture and Digital. I'm happy to second and just welcome the report in terms of it gives us a good solid building block for future funding and plans for the county. So.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. Councillor Barrow, I know you wanted to speak.
Thank you very much. If I can refer to the document relevant to the Oswestry-Trevonyn links, although the need for a Trevonyn-Trevlock link is mentioned as being a common request in the consultation responses, it has not been added to the plan and is not shown on the maps as an extension of the scheme 0.17 Oswestry-Trevonyn cycle route on the main road. I note in a previous email, Councillor Nellin suggested it would be. Sadly, I suspect someone is unaware of the difference between Trevonyn and Trevlock, as the villages run into each other. I note the wording of scheme 0.17 has been watered down from the original draft, which says reduce speed limit to 40 miles per hour. I also note this is a low down in the rankings at 410. And so will not happen. However, I am in discussions with Councillor Macy at the moment regarding a footpath from Trevonyn to Trevlock, and I hope this can be supported going forward as an alternative, as this has been high on the residents' list of priorities for at least 17 years since I was a borough council. I don't need an answer to that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Barrow. Councillor Dean, did you? Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Dean, Leader of the Green Group. I welcome this, and it's, I suppose, the headline response is let's get on with it. We really do need to be making progress on this. It's 2017 that the advice came out on how to do an LC whip, and now we're finally getting one, which is good, but it's taken a very long time. I was particularly interested to hear Councillor Lennon's referring specifically to different parts of the Shropshire Plan, which is very welcome. I think we need to strengthen that by actually getting some KPIs in there, because at the moment there are no KPIs associated with this plan. We could have KPIs around public health in particular. If people have seen recent reports looking at low traffic neighbourhoods and measures to improve active travel that have come out recently, the evidence is now absolutely conclusive that they have a significant impact, a positive impact on public health. And as we have an ageing population and we have real concerns around that, then clearly the public health aspect of this should be brought to the fore with some specific KPIs, as well as perhaps some others around routes to be developed. The second point is just to say something about the actual plan. I think that there are perhaps some opportunities missed. It's very interesting what the council just said in terms of connecting villages to market towns. I do think that as we see more and more electric bikes out in the market, that opportunity is huge, and it's also huge in terms of our tourism industry. If we can really connect sort of some of the beautiful places in Shropshire into the hubs and into the public transport with really good cycling opportunities, then I think that's a huge opportunity for us that shouldn't be missed. So I would welcome further work as we go forward on that. And then that relates to really how we integrate this. We've been waiting 4 years for LTP4, which is going to be the parent document for this, apparently. So at the moment, it's a bit parentless. So I really hope that we're going to see that very soon to make this real. The final point is really just in terms of capacity. And my real fear is that Right now, if you look at the latest, and it is slightly old, so I'll give you that, but the latest local authority active travel capability ratings, which rates every local authority, top-tier local authority, on a scale of 0 to 4, we're one of the 5 authorities on 0. And that means we don't actually have access to funds from ATE other than funds which are supposed to be about developing our capability. And that clearly isn't good enough. Hopefully this will drag us off the bottom rating, but I think we should be making definite representations to ATE to see if we have done that by introducing and adopting an LC whip. We clearly need to do something about our capacity, but we also know that many of the whilst other places have been introducing permanent schemes, we are still living with temporary schemes in the centre of town. In my own area, the one-way street in New Street is still, after years, a temporary scheme. And we're not seeing, I'm really concerned that we are not seeing the capacity to get things through. The 20-mile-an-hour zone for my area, which has been agreed by this Cabinet, is still nowhere to be seen. And I think that there's a real problem in terms of our structures. We have, unfortunately, the same management team managing the North West Road as are managing the active travel interventions. Clearly, their attention is elsewhere, let's put it that way. And I think that we really need to have a bit more capacity over towards making sure that these active travel interventions really do come forward, and that we need to put some of our own money where our mouth is. You know, some of the capital that we are, I do have to compare it. We've just put 17 million, most of which is completely unnecessary and frankly very risky and somewhat irresponsible towards the North West Road, and we still have no dedicated capital investment into this area, into active travel. So I think we need to be doing more with our own money, as well as, thankfully, getting a plan together which will hopefully make it easier for us to creep up those ratings and to get access to the funding that is out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Evans, then Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome this report, but I welcome it with disappointment. If I concentrate on the Shrewsbury area, which is Appendix 1, I'm disappointed in the context that it notes that the 2-kilometre and 10-kilometre radius for walking and cycling. Most of my area is within the 10-kilometre radius. I note the councillors and the parts that were consulted in the preparation of this report. All the Shropshire councillors for Shrewsbury Town were consulted. So was, I think, yourself. I wasn't, and I'm not, and there is no list of any other councillors who surround Shrewsbury who are within the 10-kilometre radius. If we are going to take it seriously, then it's the cycling as well as the walking which is important, as important. I do note the report, and I also attended the recent exhibition at Bank Farm Road, Longdon Road exhibition, and I note there is some comment expressing disappointment about what is there. I note the amount of cash that's available and the amount of cash that's being spent on that. But as I say, I am a little disappointed that the rural areas have been very much neglected, especially those who are within the cycling distance of the main urban areas. And if we are going to make inroads, that's where we should be looking at including those within the town centres. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. I welcome this report. Despite all the caveats and things we might prefer to be further improved, I think we all welcome the fact that it has reached this stage and is now going for endorsement into policy, and it does show progress, and there were significant consultations earlier on. My comment is around the funding, because as you know, this report really identifies those gaps, so cycle paths and footpaths that are missing or could be improved or could be added, and it's done a good job, hasn't it, identifying the gaps and identifying what we want to be done. What it doesn't do is allocate any funding from this council, and we are all very much aware that the council has a deficit of £62 million and that there is no funding. What it sets out clearly is the important role of our council staff in bidding for external grants in order to deliver any of these schemes. And what I'd like to know is, what I'd like to know is, will the staffing resource whose task it is to write these funding bids, will they be protected from the redundancies at this council? Because as I understand it, it's not a statutory role, and in quite a lot of the statements around the budget problem, you've stated that only statutory, so mandatory roles will be retained, and that currently you're looking to make those redundancies. So could we have some assurances? Who will write these funding bids, and are they protected from your redundancies?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I don't see any other hands. Councillor Morris.
Just picking up on what Councillor Dean said about the North West Relief Road and resourcing, we're actually in the process of recruiting a project delivery team for that. So that, you know, hopefully that should provide some reassurance. In addition, the people that are looking at this, they may well be managed by Matt Johnson, but, you know, they are different people that are looking at it. So, you know, the resource is there. Just picking up the point, Councillor Evans, talking about the sort of the more rural parishes, you know, like Longdon or Burnell, places like that. So Condover and Stapleton, for example, are in the Shrewsbury plan, and they have engaged and they have been done. So they, you know, they were made aware, and you know, and they're involved in this. So, you know, maybe some have and some haven't. Don't know, but you know, if you look at section 56 and 57, that's Stapleton, and that's also Condover. So, you know, there are cycling plans from there.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Nellens.
Thanks very much. I'll start off with Councillor Gillian Dean's questions. KPI has good points, and I think we should, and we will be looking at that. In relation to the levels, we were on 0, we went up to 1, and we're very hopeful that the introduction of a plan, along with the stuff that we have already got for Bank Farm Road, etc., will help us. It shows that we've got the ambition, the motivation to do it, and that is hopeful that we can get pushed up to a level 2. Those levels bring on funding, as you talk about, which will be capital funded as well. And you know, there may well be another thing. There's all these little projects that relate to it. I mentioned school streets, etc. So there are various things that will attract funding for it. On Councillor Evans's point about consultation, this was very widely consulted on. Everybody had the option. I actually hosted at least 2 online seminars, which were people from throughout the county attended, and they were open to everyone, and there had been member briefs as well. So I'm at a loss to know why you didn't get an opportunity there. And you mentioned about the Bank Farm Road project, etc. That is, we have had the funding for that through various sources, primarily in order for road safety, and that's some of the issues there are road safety issues as opposed to LC WIP funding. And I think Councillor Morris has answered the piece about the project delivery team and who's dealing with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans and Councillor Dean, and then that's the lot. Go on.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to be very specific, but I can be. If you look on page 5 of Appendix 1, there is a list there that the consultants contacted. If one looks at that list, you'll see specific representatives that the consultants contacted. They did not contact anybody from the rural areas, as far as I'm aware. No doubt the portfolio holder brought it to the attention of his parish councils, but the parish councils themselves were not contacted to ask their comments about it. I did see the comments before about a cycle route from Hanwood, for example, into, and it's 47, I think, S47 and S47A in it, and there's an investigation. But as far as the parish councils are concerned, they were not asked their views, and that's where I'm coming from on this.
Councillor Dean, and then we'll come back to Councillor
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad we're not on level 0. I did that research this morning, and that was the last research I could find in terms of the government's website. So I'd be interested to see where that evidence is that we're on level 1. That's obviously better than level 0. It does open up some funding opportunities. Just in terms of the capacity and staffing, just to get this clear in my head, we're recruiting a team to run the North West Road, but obviously the people who run the active travel stuff are subject to the voluntary redundancy scheme and the threats to jobs. So it doesn't feel particularly secure that we are in a position to really support these ambitions staffing capacity.
Councillor Dean, don't put 2 and 2 together and make 5, please. That's not the inference I want people to hear. Thank you very much. Councillor Nellens.
Just back to the consultation, as I said earlier, it couldn't have been more widely distributed. Every council, every parish council had the opportunity. Not every parish council was doing. There's, off the top of my head, I don't know how many hundred parish councils there are in Shropshire. So clearly the team didn't go to every one, but that opportunity was there for every parish council and every local authority councillor to have an opportunity to consult. The consultations went to every market town as well, and some attended more than others. And we did welcome many of the county councillors, Shropshire councillors were present at those as well, and indeed a number of parish councils. So that consultation was widely made available. Thanks.
Okay, I have a proposer and I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 8, which is the market position statement. Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Cecilia Motley, portfolio holder for adult social care and public health. I'm pleased to present the Shropshire market position statement to Cabinet today. It sets out how the Council will work with the health and social care market to manage demand and intervene early to enable children, young people, adults and carers to remain well and independent. The MPS has been developed in collaboration with commissioners, stakeholders and providers of service across social care and health, and the document details our commissioning intentions to work with the market. It's designed to support and inform providers working or intending to work in Shropshire with what our future intentions are for commissioning and developing children and adult social care and health opportunities in Shropshire. As a council, we have statutory duties not only to meet the care and support needs for both adults, children and young people, but also to manage our care market to ensure choice and quality. Our market position statement highlights the opportunities to align resources to support across all ages, with our approach firstly on prevention and early intervention and supporting people within their own families, homes and communities. In delivering this across Shropshire, we commission social care and support services for children, families and adults from many different organisations, and it's important to reflect here that for the adults market in particular, we have a high number of local care providers. We have stressed this before, but I think it's worth stressing again that approximately 75% of our providers are small and local to Shropshire, with the remaining 20% regional and 5% only are national organisations. So this demonstrates that the care sector is vitally important as part of Shropshire's economy. Whilst we in our provider market continue to face challenges, it's therefore critical that we manage demand and work more closely together than we ever have done before. And it's clear that the current models of delivery are no longer sustainable with increasing demands, and that change is needed. We need to bring about that change. Shropshire is leading the way on its technology offer, adding additional choice of support across a large rural county, working with our communities to develop local support where people need it. The team will once again, will once approved, begin work on an action plan against the intentions to ensure that we are meeting needs now and in future for our residents. So I recommend this paper to Cabinet. I would ask for approval under 3.1. That the Cabinet approves the Shropshire Draft Market Position Statement 24-27 as set out in the attached appendix. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Motley. Do I have a seconder for that?
Yes, formally second.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I note the report and also some of the comments in it. Council has a statutory duty, yes, but I also note in 7.4 the aim of this is to develop a strong, sustainable and vibrant social care market that offers quality, informative, etc. And then it goes on at 7.8, Shropshire has to move to a preventative model, being proactive rather than reactive, with a clear focus on demand management. Do have a little bit of concern there about the phraseology, and I thought we were being a preventive market already, and but now we're going to be more, I would assume, from it. And then if we go on further on to 9.1, and it says there, the conclusions, managing the market is not only a duty, but it is imperative to ensure a choice. How will that be monitored and reported back to council and councillors? Is there going to be some key numbers about that, or will it be going back to a scrutiny to be monitored or not? I'm not sure. And I wonder.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Buckley, and then I'll come back to Councillor Martin.
Thank you. It's an interesting report which sets out quite a lot of the challenges that we face and the approach that this council will take, but not necessarily looking at some of the larger solutions. There's a lot of description of care places being not in the right location and looking for the amount of increase in demand that's expected around residential care, but there is no commitment to using any capital expenditure to control those spiralling costs. I'd like to ask really about why is it that in our highways department you have conceded that the use of a mixed economy model helps you to fill gaps where the private sector doesn't deliver. This report is full of gaps caused by the private sector not delivering in every corner of the county. If I can just read out page 28, it says the southwest of Shropshire and the southeast border area and other very rural parts of the county have very few local providers covering the full extent of these areas. With the exception of these areas, we don't have a shortage of providers, it's a shortage of carers. In the last 2 years, 5 domiciliary care providers have ceased trading in Shropshire, and we're expecting a further 3 closures in the current financial year. So here we have a description of what we've all experienced with the commercialisation of bus services, which is that commercial providers will fill gaps where there is a high population and a short distance to travel. But it is not economically viable for private providers to travel a long distance to the periphery of our county. If any of you have any experience with carers, you might know that their travel costs are covered. In other words, they can make a petrol claim, but their travel time is very rarely paid. So these carers that we're struggling to find don't want to travel to the rural periphery because that time is not paid. So whilever we are relying on the private sector, they are not going to fulfil the needs of our rural county. So why don't we learn the lesson that Mark Barrow has often described to us from his running of the highways department, and why don't we look at a mixed economy model so that we can plug the gaps in the rural areas currently not delivered by your private providers who work only for profit.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll come to Dan Morris first and then I'll come back to you at the end of it, Councillor Motley.
It's a fairly neat segue into highways. I wasn't expected to be answering this, but well, I'll have a go. So the mixed economy model has been universally and peer recognised as a fantastic model. In June, the LGC have recognised that there's an innovation award for the mixed economy. The average cost of a defect, although it spreads across between, there's 7 or 8 different defect models, the average cost of a defect has dropped from around about 180 down to £60. The bringing it in back house, which the Labour group seemed to want to do as far as their budget proposals were concerned, if you do that, then you strip across a whole load of staff, that are very experienced, and then you bring all the pension contributions across. What we're doing in the highways department is saving the council money. The facts are there, Julia. To go from a pothole defect, an average defect, from down to 180 to 60, the facts are there. You might well sit there and laugh, but it's a fact. And quite honestly, I'm not going to take lectures on highways from someone who thinks a practical solution to the North West Relief Road is dual the A5, and also put sleeping people in, and also stagger commuting times. And it's just bonkers. I'm not taking anything from that at all.
I get that. No, I absolutely get that. Councillor Mott, let's bring in Councillor Dean first, and then you can come back right at the end.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that this is a position statement rather than a strategy document, so perhaps some of this discussion is going to be held elsewhere. But just a few thoughts from me. First of all, there's been quite a lot of chat in the scrutiny work around the budget, where we've been talking about developing hubs, and I mentioned the fact that that other councils have been investing in hubs, but hubs doesn't appear as a word anywhere in this document, so despite the fact that we've got what are we predicting and what will we do headings throughout it. So I'm just wondering where that sits, that gap. Similarly, again, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to develop some more KPIs around a lot of this. And another short question before I get to the main point, which is, has this gone to scrutiny? Because there's a lot of detail in here, and I think it'd be really important that the scrutiny committee gets an opportunity to look at this properly. And I just make a general point that I think it's incumbent on us all actually to do our homework on this. I'm learning as we go on this. I've been doing LGA online training on this area because I recognise that perhaps as councillors we've not paid sufficient attention to what is clearly the most impactful area of what we do and our biggest spend. So I just wanted to put that on record. But I do think there is a point around our capital strategy on this. You mentioned that the providers in adults care are often local and small. I wonder what the story is in children's services, because there's been articles in the papers just this last couple of days about £1 out of every £5 going in profit, often to investment fund-backed nurseries, and it's a real concern that that's being, that there's a capture going on in that field, and local providers aren't being able to step up. And one of the things that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation apparently are proposing is that there should be more loans for those local small providers. Are we in a position to use our capital strategy to actually make loans available? Is that something that would help the provider market, either in children's or adults? I don't know, but I'm asking the question because I'm not seeing anything specific about capital. And as we said in the budget meeting, other councils are investing significant sums, 35 million in Lancashire, 35 million in Gloucestershire, into this area through capital, and I'm just concerned that we're not taking the opportunities that are out there. The final point is just in terms of social work capacity. It seems that our budget decisions have triggered, for whatever reasons, a sudden decision by Chester University to phase out much of its work in Shrewsbury, which is a disaster for Shrewsbury, I think. But in particular, some of that provision includes social work training, and I believe that that's a partnership that's been valuable for us and includes apprenticeships. Do we have a plan to keep that going?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Motley, if I just answer the latter part of that question around the provision for students. Councillor Dean, you're well aware I emailed you only this week that we have been in discussion for some time now with other providers to pick up that, because like you, we value it very highly. I also value your comments about the fact that you've been doing some further training, because you're absolutely right. We spend more money on adult social care than we spend on anything else, and I don't think there is a general understanding of the technicalities, and that's not just in this council, that's across local government in itself. I'm going to say it before I get jumped on by the portfolio holder for children. We already do look at, and we have done on an annual basis now, in fact we might even get 2 at some point in 1 year, but we are providing our own placements for children, because we recognise that a lot of the big companies use those, whereas Councillor Motley said with our adult provision, a lot of it is very much small provision. Councillor Motley, I'll come back to you now.
Thank you. I must say that was quite a wide-ranging discussion. Some of it not entirely relevant, I'm sorry to have to tell you. Councillor Buckley, I do worry about this insistence of yours that we simply have got to have other people helping us all the time, that we've got to have a mixed economy. I'm not quite sure what you mean by a mixed economy. We already have a mixed economy. We've got all sorts of provision within this county to look after our elderly and our young people. So this sort of, you always seem to me that you're nudging towards, actually we should all be bringing it into the council. We've had this discussion with you before. And I do hope you realise that if we were to bring care workers, for example, into the council, it would cost this council £26 million a year. just you know, for info there. As far as the paper is concerned, basically what we're trying to do is we are trying to work with our providers, and I think that's a very important point. You mentioned the fact, Councillor Buckley, that there are deficits in care in the rural areas. There are, but what you've got to remember is that we're not the only people providing care, and that's another thing that we have to keep emphasising. We have a very good relationship with our voluntary and community sector. We have a good relationship with our health partners. Our health partners, as you know, already make up 30% of the adult social care market. So it's not always Shropshire Council that is having to find solutions here. We're all having to find solutions here to this problem. And the other thing that I think you have to remember is that when we receive the Market Sustainability and Improvement Workforce Fund settlement from the government, it is never enough. So we are always having to top up. We are topping up so that to the tune of £8 million to keep ourselves and our market steady. We are also, it may be of interest, we are also working with the regional average of payment this year. We are benchmarking against our neighbouring authorities. We are doing everything we should do, and we are working as hard as we can to provide a mixed economy, if you like, of services, and including our own children's homes. So I just think that interventions along the lines of why are you always getting it wrong are really quite unhelpful. If you were to look closely at what we're doing, you would realise that we are actually very well regarded in this market. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley, have you got a question?
Thank you. Yeah, it was just to clarify, I was reading your own report back to you, and it's describing gaps in the private sector. It's not describing our gaps. It's your own report which describes that the private market struggles to deliver in the really rural areas. They struggle to find carers, and that some of those providers are going under. And it talks about a lack of carers rather than providers. And I was simply describing the current model doesn't pay them for their travel. So it's a sort of a geographic issue.
Can I stop you there?
It's a geographic issue.
Not every company does not pay travel.
So I think that's something we could look at for page 28 of your own report, which describes an issue for the periphery.
Thank you, Councillor Dean.
I've just pressed for a response on whether this is going to scrutiny, because I do think there's a lot of detail here that they should be looking at.
Thank you very much. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much. The hard work begins now. Moving on to item number 9, which is the recommendation for Bishop's Castle Neighbourhood Plan to proceed to referendum. Ruth, do you want to come and join us? Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder for Planning and Regulatory Services. This report seeks agreement that, subject to the identified modifications, the Bishop's Castle Neighbourhood Plan meets the basic conditions and all other legal requirements. The report also seeks approval to undertake a local referendum on the Bishop's Castle Neighbourhood Plan. The referendum area would be restricted to the designated neighbourhood plan area, which in this case equates to the Bishop's Castle Town Council boundary, and is intended to determine whether there is community support for the Bishop's Castle Neighbourhood Plan to become part of the statutory development plan, and therefore be used in the determination of planning applications in the designated area. Should this report be approved, the date for the referendum has now been confirmed as the 2nd of May 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Do I have a second of that?
Mark Jones, Portfolio Holder for Growth and Regeneration. And I'd like to second it, please.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Ruth Houghton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ruth Houghton from Bishop's Castle. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to this paper, and really it's just to acknowledge the extensive piece of work that captures really the essence of Bishop's Castle within this plan, and that's been down to a very well-led steering group under the Town Council auspices with Councillor Jane Cowell, and a very hard-working group of volunteers who have undertaken a huge amount of work, and that's particularly evident in the character assessment, which is, as it is a snapshot in time for Bishop's Castle, but in its own right is also a piece of social history going forward, which will be lodged with the Heritage Resource Centre. It was also really pleasing to see the comments, and I'll direct you to them, by the independent examiner in item 13 on page 23, and his first comment about the clear, intelligible and well-written and thought and effort that has gone into the creation of the plan. And again, that is purely down to the many volunteers and Andrea who supported the Town Council in delivering this. So I'm really pleased to see it here. It's certainly looking forward for Bishop's Castle, and I'm not going to leave this alone without saying we still have the Clun River problem to resolve, which has been made very clear in this plan, and disappointing to see 2030 as a possible time scale on that. But I won't lose the opportunity to raise that issue. So, you know, if this goes forward to referendum, we'll certainly promote it in Bishop's Castle, and we're very pleased with the outcome of the independent examiner's report. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Ruth, and I'm sure we'll all echo our thanks to the predominantly volunteers, actually. I don't know if it's entirely voluntary, but it's certainly predominantly volunteers that undertake this work. And, you know, I'd go so far as to say, you know, as we go through, and there will be more of these neighbourhood plans, this is actually a really good one to look at, because I think it's a very good example of that. I'm sure the planners would totally agree with you that the Clun River issue is something that is still affecting us all, unfortunately. Okay, I've got a... Oh, Mark, did you want to have a word?
Yeah, it's a great day for Bishop's Castle if we can get the referendum through. It's a lovely little town, lovely little community. In fact, I'm going to stop there next month, so looking forward to it. And I think, you know, it does show that the planners and everyone is working on for the north and the south, which seems to think, someone seems to think they always get forgotten, but this very highlights that we are doing a good job. I work on my own, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So there's a thing for you. So we now all have to take our holidays in Shropshire, obviously, because to follow Councillor James's. Okay, so I've got a proposal. I've got a seconder. All those in favour? Yeah, and I look forward to confirming that after May. Moving on to item number 10, again, Councillor Chris Schofield, with the place plan update.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder for Planning and Regulatory Services. There are 18 place plans across the county focusing on a main town and its rural hinterland. They support the delivery of the current and emerging local plan for the county, which sets out the scale and location of growth in the county to 2038, and also support the delivery of the Shropshire plan. The 18 appendices to this report identify the infrastructure projects proposed to be included in the final versions of the place plans and their level of priority. This covers a full range of infrastructure types, including transport and accessibility, health, utilities, education and outdoor recreation. The priority status assigned to these projects reflects the relative importance of these projects as a means to support new and planned development. In doing so, the Council can help ensure available funds, including SIL funding, are directed towards the most appropriate projects. Through this process, more than 500 projects nominated by parish and town councils have been included on the place plans. Where nominated projects from parish and town councils have not been included, this is largely because officers have felt the project is not sufficiently developed or is not considered a priority for the area. Given the extensive nature of this place plan review, Cabinet have been asked to agree to the content and prioritisation of the projects on this list for the purpose of decision-making on council resources. However, recognising that this position is inevitably a picture in time, as updated information becomes available, in particular through the work of the Strategic Infrastructure Network. Cabinet are also being asked to delegate further incremental updates to the Assistant Director of Economy and Place in consultation with the Council's internal infrastructure group and the portfolio holder for planning and regulatory services ahead of any future full review of the place plans.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Do I have a seconder for that?
Thank you. It's Councillor Gwynne Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance and Corporate Resources and Communities. And I formally second the report and reserve my right.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Butler. I actually just wanted to say that I know how much work has been put in by the town councils and parish councils on this. And this, you know, this is really, Ruth mentioned it just now actually, about a sort of snapshot in time. This absolutely is that snapshot in time. And I think the other thing that it came up at my own parish last night was that where they have aspirations which they realise actually, although it may be their aspiration, it's not everybody's aspiration in terms of infrastructure for the area. It's enabled them to actually re-look at their projects and look at whether they fund it from, say, their own seal funding. So I think this is a really good document. I know it's been a lot of work for the place team as well, but I welcome this update very much so. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think it'd be remiss of me not to thank all the volunteers in the parish and town councils, because in my former life I used to be a town councillor for 15 years in Oswestry, and these are vital plans for future development. And it'd also be remiss of me not to thank the officers as well, who do a fantastic job on these place plans. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Roger?
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this, and it's been long awaited, and there's a history, and it's mentioned in the report. Compliments to the people who have completed it, but it is also with immense disappointment. Parish councils have spent a lot of time looking at it and coming forward with their plans, and have agreed with officers, and as far as they were concerned, it was on the list. And it was with surprise that when I read the report last week, when it was published by the Cabinet, that many of them have just been deleted. No messages have gone to the parish councils to tell them it's being discussed today. No messages have gone to them to say, sorry, your wish is not in it. I took it to a parish council last night, and they put in 12 items on their parish plan. As far as they were concerned, it was going forward. There's just one on this list. Another parish council, who I'll be going to next week, hasn't got any on the list. A parish council which met the middle part of last week as it came out were very disappointed that some of theirs weren't on the list. Parishes spent a lot of time doing it. I have been in correspondence with some of the officers about what's in it, and I take your point from the portfolio holder that the concentration has been on the towns, on the main conurbations, the main urban areas, to the detriment of the rural areas. And the comment was that most of the development has gone on in the urban areas, so they should have a lot of the SIL spent in their area. I'm sorry, in comparison, a lot of development has gone on in the rural areas, and they are suffering because of it. But as I say, there just doesn't appear to be anything in it. It says that this list for the purposes of decision-making on council resources. Shropshire Council has decided on this, not the parish councils, and they have in effect vetoed many of the proposals put forward by a number of parish councils. I've had a message this morning from Councillor Taylor, who was here earlier on. He had just read this, and he was referring to a quarry in his area which has been chasing. The money's being given to Shropshire Council, and he has a 1 to 5 years. So it has made it onto the plan, but it's 1 to 5 years, and the money has already been donated, has been given to Shropshire Council in order to do the work. I have no more details than this, but it is an example that the parishes have not been kept on board. The report was not circulated to the parish and town councils prior to coming to Cabinet. Did they have any comments or anything like this? Just nothing. Absolutely zilch. And to me, that is a disappointment. If we want parishes, and this council has problems we all know about, and this council needs to work with all the parish and town councils. This is not really the way forward when this place plan been produced since 2019, and I understand the difficulties in producing it, but it's just produced here, and this list has not been circulated around any of the parish councils to inform them what's in it and what isn't.
Well, I'm a bit confused, Councillor Evans, I have to say, because I've been to 2 parish council meetings this week, and they've both said, it was on the agenda, it wasn't me that brought this up, they've actually both said about the place plans. So either they're more engaged than your parish councils, or I'm not sure. But it doesn't reflect at all the 2 meetings I've had.
If I can, Chairman, it is on the parish council's agenda, but they had no updates as far as they were concerned. Their requests were going forward, and it was only when I drew attention to what is on the plan.
Well, I can only assume, Councillor Evans, that my parish councils are different, because they actually spoke last night about their items that they put forward and the ones that had made it onto the list. So I don't get that. Councillor Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I'm disappointed that you are disappointed, Councillor Evans, because you know the work that goes into these, and place plans are never going to please everyone 100%. But I think you'll find that the officer's door is open any time, and so is mine, to bring your concerns, and that they can go to review next time. Who knows? I mean, you wouldn't be the only councillor on Shropshire Council that's not happy with the place plan, but they are what they are, and there's an awful lot of work gone in there, and I think, you know, if we can improve it, by all means, everybody join in.
Thank you. Thank you. I also welcome this report, and obviously I've been on that journey since 2009 and the original SAMDEV, and it's been quite a journey over the years. I'm disappointed, Councillor Evans, in the fact that both myself and Simon Harris, that represent my town council and 8 rural wards, we had meetings with the officers about what was going on and what wasn't going on the place plan and the priorities. So I don't understand why you haven't solved the problem for your parishes, to be truthful. However, I think draw your attention to the second recommendation, which says this will now be a live report. Instead of criticising it, if you've got problems with it, change it. Be proactive. Thank you.
If I can, Chairman, they are, and the place plan officer has visited the parish councils. There's been a dialogue with the place plan officers, and the expectation was that the items that they'd put forward were going on. They were numbered. They were told, they were given a number for it, so it isn't something that hadn't been numbered, and the number is not there. And as I say, I have had discussions with the appropriate officers, exchanged emails with them, so it is an ongoing discussion, but the parish councils were not informed of the items that they had expected on this list would be on it, and they haven't. And there are some complaints on their way to the parish council, to Shropshire Council about it.
Okay. I suppose the only thing I would say, Councillor Evans, is that actually, I suppose I informed my parish council of the latest. I presume others around the table did as well. But, you know, I take your point. Okay, so I have a proposer and I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 11, Children's Social Care Improvement Plan. Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight, Portfolio Holder for Children and Education. And today I ask Cabinet to approve the improvement plan following a recent Ofsted visit. Just to give you some background, the plan was set up following an Ofsted focus visit on children's services in November 2023. The plan has been developed after Ofsted inspectors noted one significant area where performance needed to improve, the experience of children who needed help and progression, where inspectors said required improvement to be good. The focus visit was the next step after the Council's children's social care services were previously inspected by Ofsted in February 2022, which resulted in the Council being rated as good overall by Ofsted. Since the visit, we have set up a Children's Improvement Board made up of key senior officers representing various areas of the Council, and we include cross-party representation of members who would like to put on record as thanks for their challenge and debate and discussion on the board. Thank you. Some of the actions made to date include the development of more of a comprehensive and robust quality assurance to oversee the quality of social work practice across the service. Steps have also been taken to improve guidance and training to ensure clear understanding and consistency of processes, pathways, policies and procedures across the practice. And again, I want to thank officers for this. In addition, and to address the recruitment challenges, nationally we know this is a problem, it's not just us, we identified appointments continue to be made and that we will help deliver the changes needed to ensure the well-being and safety of children and young people. And just to confirm, Councillor Dean, we are still running the social work programme apprenticeship locally. There will still be an offer. It's vitally important that we continue on that. So I'm really pleased to see that we're rapidly moving forward to address the areas of improvement identified from the Ofsted Spotlight Focus visit. The Children's Social Care Improvement Plan is a key document that will track the progress and identify any areas of challenge that we need to resolve. We are absolutely committed to ensuring the issues raised are fully addressed. Whilst there is no requirement to set up this board, we have done so. The Council have a board. We now have the action plan in place, and at this early stage, the Council have made a voluntary and proactive decision in our response to the findings from Ofsted, and we now can ensure that progress will be made. Moving forward, we'll continue to work hard to implement the actions of our improvement plan. We've already been doing so for some time, even before the Ofsted visit. We're also very reassured to know that the Department for Education were assured by the actions being taken following a recent visit in February of this year. The plan will be formally submitted to Ofsted by the beginning of April. So, as agreed, we'll obviously keep Cabinet updated, but I'm happy to put forward the two recommendations in this paper as outlined. So, one, we'll improve the improvement plan, Appendix A, and recommend to Council to improve the terms of reference of the Children's Improvement Board, Appendix B. The plan will be submitted to Ofsted as required. And also, two, to recommend that People's Overview Committee receive quarterly updates in relation to the plan and its progress. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that report?
Councillor Cecilia Motley, Adult Social Care and Public Health. Happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just, from my perspective, I just want to say thank you for everybody who's really got behind this very, very quickly and with absolute commitment. And having the fact that Ruth's actually in the room, I do thank the cross-party members actually who are working on this. Ruth, which is one of them, Councillor Tony Parsons, Councillor Duncan Kerr as well. I've forgotten anybody? No. But for me, I think, you know, we've taken action extremely quickly. I also think, just to mention, this will come to Council in a form, won't it? To make sure that it's enshrined in the Constitution. Not the plan, but the fact that we've set up the Improvement Board will come before Council for the Constitution. Councillor Evans.
Quite a brief one, Chairman. Yeah, it's good that the cross-party are involved with it, and I welcome that, and it seems to be positive. But what I would like is, if possible, an assurance that other partners are also actively involved and adequately resourced in supporting the looked after children.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that actually. It's not just internal. Kirsty, do you want to talk about the other people that are involved?
Yeah, we've also got, challenge also from the LGA, which is really helpful as well, and guidance. So yeah, it's not just within Shropshire Council.
And the DFT and Ofsted are also involved in this themselves. So Buckley?
Yeah, I find this report quite difficult reading. I think it's the most important report on today's Cabinet for two reasons. One, because of the seriousness of the failings found in the Ofsted inspection, and two, because of the exceptionally high number of children we have in looked after care in Shropshire. Some of the issues described in the report affect lots of councils, but we have a very high number of looked after children. We are an exception, an outlier. That isn't the same for every council. And the issues around recruitment and retention of permanent social workers is not a new topic for our discussion. You are bored of us in the opposition bringing forward every year in alternative budgets our proposals that you should pay permanent social workers a higher salary and better working conditions to reduce your over-reliance on agency workers. This year it's £1.6 million spent on agency, and last year it was £1.3 million. So there should be no surprise to any of us that that was one of the main findings in the Ofsted report, and one of their main suggestions is that you must very quickly move towards permanent and more senior, more experienced social workers. In our last discussion of this at the last cabinet meeting, I gave you some best practice example from Wolverhampton where they had a similar difficulty, and one of their proposals was to cap the workload of their social workers. I think it was to 20 cases, so that they would know that they would not be overworked and that it would be a manageable job that they could do with pride. And just reading some of the comments in the Ofsted report is really distressing, that recruitment and retention continues to be a challenge.
Can we stick to the improvement plan as opposed to going back over the Ofsted letter, please?
Well, the improvement plan is a step in the right direction, but it's still too little too late. We need to increase the working conditions, cap the workload of social workers if we want to solve the problems that have been identified. It says clearly the workforce strategy put in place has not been sufficiently effective in tackling the staffing issues.
Yeah.
So it needs to be...
Councillor Buckley, can I just stop you there for a minute? Because to the outside world, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple to say, you know, we'll just bring all these new social workers in and everything in the world will be rosy, whereas you know that that is not the case. And whilst you might mention other councils, I can tell you now the call I was on Friday, there isn't a single council in this country that is not struggling with social workers per se. Forget about experienced and whatever, it's struggling per se. I brought Sonia to the table. Sonia, do you just want to outline some of the comments that you've heard?
Sorry, thank you. Sonia Miller, Assistant Director of Children's Social Care, Safeguarding and Early Help. I think that there are a few issues there that have been brought to the table I think need to be kind of clarified. We have a high number of children looked after in Shropshire. We are not an outlier, and we are by far not the highest in the country. And Councillor Buckley, I think we have a planned meeting for me to be able to step you through the data and the evidence for that. That's not actually an accurate description. However, we do have a high number of looked after children. There's very good reasons for that. And I think it's very important that Cabinet reflect and know and understand that 85% of our children looked after are subject to a court order. So those have been scrutinised by the courts, and the court has made an order that those children will be looked after 85%. So we are not taking in children into care that do not need to be looked after. In relation to the recruitment and retention challenges, the salaries are being reviewed. There is a project that's up and running across the People's Directorate to look at the social work retention and recruitment of social workers across adults and children's. It's not as easy and as straightforward to say that we will just suddenly pay these types of social workers a different salary. It just isn't that straightforward. It has to be an equitable offer, it has to be considered within the local authority grading system, and it has to be part of a wider council approach. However, we do have retention payments in place which bring us in line with our competitors locally, and we do have other benefits like supervision and training, etc., that our social workers do acknowledge are important to them and a part of the package. I think it's important to know that the new data that's just released is demonstrating 7,000 child protection social work vacancies across the country. We've got 33 of those. So in terms of context, there is a real challenge around child protection, so experienced child protection social workers. We have developed a new role that we are piloting, which focuses on recruiting very experienced child protection social worker, paid at a higher grade, in line with the new guidance that's come out in terms of working together, which gives us some more flexibilities to approach the role in a different way, so that we still meet social work, the statutory requirements, but that we can use that social work role in a slightly different way. We've recently got 4 of those agreed by the Improvement Board. We've appointed to 2, and they're due to start imminently. And we're going back out to advert, because what's most important for me about that is that we have the right level of experience and knowledge and capability to fulfil those roles. We do still have challenges in recruiting to experienced child protection workers. There is no doubt about that. So does every other local authority. We are aspiring to a capped caseload of between 15 and 18. In my view, 20 is still high. We've got a vast majority of the service where that is the case, in the front door, it varies week on week. You can't cap a front door, and I know that Wolverhampton haven't either. In other areas of the service, we do have caseloads of 18, 19, bouncing around those numbers. If I was to currently to cap my social work caseloads at 18 to 20, I'd have over 200 unallocated children, which is illegal. So it is absolutely an aspiration. It is absolutely the way we want to go, but it's not something that you can just do, because what it does is leave you with children without an allocated social worker. I've currently got 6 unallocated. And I need to, you know, we work on that on a week-by-week basis, day-by-day basis in terms of allocations. So I don't disagree with the aspiration, and I don't disagree that that's the direction of travel that we want to go, but until you've actually got workers in positions to hold those children, and you haven't got the vacancies, it's just physically not possible.
Yeah, just by way of information as well, as chair of West Midlands Employers WME, this is an issue that is affecting the whole of the sub-region, and to that end they have been working very strongly with many councils across the region, and next Tuesday I am actually chairing the Recruitment and Workforce Insight Review, because the sector as a whole is going to look at how it can increase supply of not just social workers, but the actual professionalism we need within local government, and how we can actually increase that supply to take off the pressure financially and otherwise of outcomes to local authorities. So once that information is forthcoming, it will be on the net, but obviously Shropshire is going to be at the forefront of that as I'm chairing the meeting. Thank you.